Welcome to Yin Yoga Lifestyle. I am your host, Colette Darville, cultivating our body's resilience and inner silence and its application to all aspects of your life. Let's become enlightened and enjoy the power of intuitiveness and creativity. You are listening to Society Bites Radio, social interaction for the mind and soul. Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I am your host, Colette Darville, and this is Yin Yoga Lifestyle. So now let us take a deep, meditative breath. Inhale, so. Exhale, hum. Rachel Webb at internet.dakini is an instructor in yoga and meditation teacher training and is also the executive director of 3 Jewel Studio in New York City. Rachel has trained simultaneously in yoga and mental health for the past decade and in Tibetan Buddhism for the past 6 years. She has completed a meditation teacher training and private yoga teacher training in 2017 and is a certified Buddhist philosophy practitioner. She has over 6 years of experience working with people diagnosed with serious mental illness, assisting them in achieving wellness goals. Rachel has hosted several therapeutic groups on relationship health over the past year and is currently working on relationship wellness workbooks that combine modern psychological approaches with Buddhist techniques. Thank you again for joining us on Yin Yoga Lifestyle, Rachel.
Of course. I'm so happy to be here this morning.
And it's great to have you back again so we can continue all the things we didn't talk about last time.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much to talk about. Rachel, the past year has been full of so much change in our physical and mental well-being. And, during these times of stress, there's a lot of people, they're not really sure what the future holds for them. One of the big questions is what changes in our everyday life can we incorporate to cope with all the uncertainty?
It's such a compassionate question to ask. And, at 3 Jewels, we have these meditation and these yoga classes, right? And we've seen an influx of people during this pandemic, during the past year, who are looking for the tools to cope with uncertainty. And as someone who practices Buddhism, who studied the teachings of the Buddha, myself and many others in my community who are applying these practices, we're quite comfortable with the uncertainty that's going on, because the reality is, and this is something that, we're kind of experiencing as a planet right now. We're sharing this uncertain experience, but the reality is that life is always uncertain. We never know what's going to happen next. And, ask anyone who's just been diagnosed with cancer. Ask anyone who's just lost a child. People all over the planet experience uncertain times. And now we're getting to do it together, and we're calling it COVID, or we're calling it the political climate. But the reality is that life is always uncertain.
Right. That's great. That's a really good way to put it, and that makes sense to so many people.
And to me, it's almost comforting to reflect, oh, this is just the way that it is. There's nothing abnormal happening. But then the utility of realizing that we all have to face uncertainty. And some people call it COVID, and some people call it cancer. Some people call it mental illness. Is that we get an opportunity to connect with every single other being on this planet, like 8 billion people,
right?
And actually have a compassionate experience that unites us. I might not know what you are particularly going through, but I know that we as a collective, as humans, are forced to face uncertainty.
Yeah.
And so having that open the heart into compassion rather than staying in fear, to me, this is the best way that we can sort of deal with the uncertainty that we're experiencing as a
Wow.
human race.
Oh, thank you. That's beautifully put. Absolutely beautifully put. Um, and I was doing some reading and on some of the studies of some of the things like that impact us, such as fear. And this can cause
Mm,
such disruptions in our digestive systems, our cardiovascular systems, and it even has an impact on the decreased fertility, memory, brain processing, and our reactivity. Can we learn to rewire the way we react to fear?
yes, absolutely. And that practice is called meditation, which is
Right,
part of what we're here to talk about today.
right.
But it's something that I think maybe we don't talk about enough. The utility of meditation is not just to help us fall asleep at night or help us cope with anxiety. Meditation is a practice that is used to change our karma. And then you have to say, well, what's karma? It's this foreign word. I may not have heard it before. I maybe heard it in a colloquial sense.
Right.
Karma just means a movement of the mind. So we're talking about these micro units of consciousness. And meditation is a tool to change the way our consciousness actually functions. We're choosing the thoughts that we want to think, and we're choosing the sequence that we want to think them in. And
Mm,
in that way, we get to not only rewire our brain, but we can change everything from the foundation consciousness all the way up to how our body reacts. So when I teach about meditation, and when you look at and you meet and you investigate the people that come to a meditation studio, so many people have experienced trauma. And trauma
right.
is something that's an international conversation right now, right?
Yes, it really
It's
is.
a yeah, and it's something that they're talking more openly about their trauma. Buddha and his disciples and all of the practitioners that came after him and before him too, you know, we have to give Hinduism credit where credit is due.
Right.
They've been utilizing the concept of trauma in the positive. And by that I mean, when we as humans experience trauma, there's this heightened emotional state. And then that can change the thoughts that we think. It can change how we interact in relationships. It can change our biochemistry even. And the Buddha said, if that can happen in the negative, it can happen in the positive, meaning when I have these heightened emotional states like fear or even like love,
Mm.
I can use that to rewire or change these patterns that seemed hardwired into me. I can use these states as a way to make long-lasting change.
That's actually um, that's phenomenal because people it, when people are in a state of fear or they're in a state of anxiety, they can't seem to find a way out of it or to
Mm-hmm.
change the way they feel or they think. So that is actually very hopeful, you know. And I think that that's the emotion everybody wants to have is that is the hope that they can move forward, right? And as a meditation teacher, somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, Rachel, what's
Mm-hmm.
meditation?" How would you
Mm-hmm.
describe it to them?
Yeah. So the the plain the plain old definition of meditation is putting your mind on a single object for an extended period of time. And so your object might be your breath. I'm putting
Mm,
my mind on my breath for a half an hour or for 10 minutes or for 5 minutes or whatever. Or I'm putting my mind on this visualization. I'm putting my mind on this mantra. If
mm,
someone asks me, what is meditation? It's just putting the mind on a certain thing for whatever your predetermined agreement of time is going to be. But then the question is, if I want to rewire my brain, and I want to change my mind. Like if someone's listening to this and they're saying, oh, well, that sounds like right. If I feel that I could maybe do that, but how? How do I
Right.
utilize meditation to do that? And there's different types of meditation objects that
Mm.
can do that, like more quickly or more slowly. They're
Mm.
all effective,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And scientific studies show that, right? You decrease your heart rate. Specifically, there's been a lot of studies on loving kindness meditation. And so when we use a meditation object like compassion or like wisdom, what's the nature of my reality? How do I know that when I get angry at my partner, there's a real reason to do that? Or that when I'm afraid of something, it's really
Mm.
a logical response. Then we get into the process of starting to painstakingly rewire. It's almost like embroidery.
Ah,
I'm
that's a
trying to
beautiful.
change the
Yeah, that's
picture, and
beautiful.
it takes, yeah, right. It
Yeah.
occurred to me this morning because
Yeah.
it's not a pill that you take and then it all gets better, but it's this process over time that can be very enjoyable, that can be very beautiful, but can also be very boring and annoying. But you still want to do it
Hmm.
because you want to change your mind, because your mind is how you experience yourself and it's how you experience your world. So if we want to shift that, then we really do have to meditate.
Oh,
And
yeah.
my recommendation is always, 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 always,
Yeah.
always try, and this is from my personal experience, compassion-based meditation,
Mm.
because that's going to make a much stronger effect. We're humans with human emotions. Other lineages, other teachers in different traditions might have a different opinion, and they have a reason to. In the context of their philosophy, it makes sense.
Hmm.
For me, I always recommend something having to do with compassion, because we're showing our mind. Every time I meditate on compassion, I'm showing my mind that I'm a kinder person and the world is a kinder place. And so I think if anyone's listening to this podcast right now and they're saying, I want to get rid of my anxiety, try to do a compassion-based meditation where you're seeing yourself loving and caring for others, maybe others who have that same problem that you have, you know?
Absolutely. Um, yes, because I always feel that if it's a compassionate meditation, um, you find it very deeply in the heart center, and it just,
Mm.
I always get a nice warm heart when I when I meditate with a compassionate meditation. And it always feels so good. It feels really good. Um, so if I feel good, then what I send out into the world is going to be better. That's how
Mm-hmm.
I'm imagining it. Um,
Exactly.
yeah. Now, I want to get into a little bit about Buddhism and
Mm-hmm.
the ideals at the heart of Buddhism are collectively known as the three jewels or the three treasures. Can you explain these for us?
Yes. Sometimes people think we're a jewelry store. Um, but we kept the name because there is a significance, which is
Right,
exactly what you're intuiting here. So
right.
the three jewels or the three treasures, um, they are, and I can explain them. They're the
Yes.
Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and it's
Okay.
something that we actually provide at Three Jewels. And it
Mm.
doesn't need to be a Buddhist thing. Even though it's a Buddhist thing, it
Yeah.
doesn't need to be a Buddhist thing. And what it really means is, do you have a belief that you can go from a normal human mind that's sort of plagued by anger, fear, addiction, jealousy, right?
Yeah.
Instability.
Yeah.
Do you, anyone, believe that you can get from that place to a place that's a little bit better?
Mm.
Maybe less anger, maybe less jealousy, whatever it is. And the Buddha says, listen, if you can go from there to there, you can go from your starting place to a mind that
Mhm.
has no anger, that has no fear, that has no pain anymore. And he says that, and then we have to investigate, does that actually make sense? Do I believe it? And if I do,